Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. This is our special episode number 54. As the last final warning message just prior to the close of provision. So, focusing our attention to the subject, the image of the beast, the image to the beast, image beast, the number of his name, and the mark. Now, I would like to connect first the statement in 2SR 199 saying, in the judgment, it is granted to the saints that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image and over his mark and over the number of his name to stand on the sea of glass, life eternal. Revelation 15 verse 2. So who are they that had been granted to stand on the sea of glass? Only those who have gotten the victory over the beast, over his image, over his mark, and over the number of his name. And what does it mean by standing on the sea of glass? In track 15, on page 33, obviously, all who get the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, receive the reward, stand on the sea of glass. So what does it mean by standing on the sea of glass? Receive their reward. And what is the reward? It is characterized by 1 penny. In 2SR 235, it says, why were the first paid last and the last first? Answer. The pay God's servants receive is eternal life and is characterized by the penny. Therefore, those who are granted the assurance of a never-ending life first are those who were hard last. And according to the parable, it was the company called at the 11th hour. There are those who are marked or sealed by the man with the writer's inkhorn of Ezekiel 9, or as John calls him, the angel with the seal of God, and he sealed or marked 144,000. This glorious company is the first who are granted the assurance of never tasting death. 2SR page 235. Now, we already read in 2 symbolic code, number 5 and 6, page 10, saying, the angel of Revelation 7, who prophetically sealed the 144,000, is the same as the one of Ezekiel 9, who marked those who sighed and cried for the abomination in the church, says the spirit of prophecy. This mightiest of angels, in Revelation 7, verse 2, has in his hand the seal of the living God, or of him who alone can give life, who can inscribe upon the foreheads the mark or inscription, to whom shall be granted immortality, eternal life. It is the voice of this highest angel that had authority to command the 4 angels to keep in check the 4 winds until this work was performed, and until he should give the summons to let them loose. This sealing of the servants of God is the same that was shown to Ezekiel in vision, Testimonies to Ministers 444 and 445. So in this reading, is very clear that before the 4 winds will be released, the 144,000 shall be granted first immortality. It says, to whom shall be granted immortality, eternal life. So, to repeat again, before the 4 winds will be released, the 144,000 were granted first immortality. Or, in the subject of the trumpet study, they had been made invulnerable to death. A bulletproof army to finish the gospel work. According to 2TG number 8, page 20, the servants of God shall certainly gather all their brethren out of all nations. Isaiah 66, verse 20. Indeed so, for the legs of the gospel are the legs of the people who proclaim it. Of course, only with perfect coordination and a bulletproof army can the gospel work be finished. When the two-horned beast declares that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Revelation 13, verse 15. Now, let's go back again to our subject. What is the illustration of granting the reward, which is to be sealed with immortality? It was illustrated that the saints were standing on the sea of glass. And who are they that had been granted to stand on the sea of glass? According to the Bible in Revelation 15:2, that is very plain in 2SR 199. Only those who have gotten the victory over the beast, over the image, over the mark, and over the number of his name. That statement, gotten the victory, meaning the beast, the image, the mark, and the number of his name were completely unmasked. They completely understood the subject concerning the beast, the subject concerning the image, the subject concerning the mark, and the number of his name. And that is the reason that they have gotten the victory over the beast, over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name. Now, that complete satanic scheme was revealed by God through the symbolization of the scarlet-colored beast. And the scarlet-colored beast is found on Revelation chapter 17. How many verses? Revelation chapter 17. From verse 1 to Revelation 17, from verse 1 to verse 18. So there are 18 verses on Revelation chapter 17. Now let us read 2SR. 2SR page 121. It says, "And there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters." Revelation 17 verse 1. Then it says, let us read the explanation given by the shepherd's rod. "The angel that was talking to John is one of the seven, which had the seven vials of the seven last plagues." Then it says, see Revelation 15:7 and Revelation 16 verse 1. It will be noticed that he had the vial of the plague ready, but it had not been poured out at the time he said to John, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore. By the information given, it is certain that the event predicted by the symbol, the woman sitting on the beast, is shortly before the plagues are poured out, and in the time when the woman is to be judged. Let us study closely first this paragraph. Do not forget that the Bible is very plain, that at the time when one of the seven angels who had the seven vials of the seven last plagues, they had already the vials at the time when they were talking to John. Now, is this event occurred in 96 AD? Because the book of Revelation was written from 96 AD to 98 AD. If this vision was fulfilled in the days of John the Beloved in the island of Patmos, are we saying that the seven angels at that time, they had already the seven vials? So that is the question, because the Bible is very plain, according to the shepherd's rod, that at the time when one of the seven angels is talking to John, they had already the seven vials. And since the shepherd's rod say, see Revelation 15:7. So let us go to Revelation 15. Let's read track number 5. Track number 5 on page 116 and 117. So I would like to read. It says, track number 5, 116 and 117. Consequently, the fulfillment of the prophetic statement, the temple of God was open in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament. Then the quotation is Revelation 11 verse 19. Then it says, will just as it was in the beginning of the judgment be realized after the judgment is finished. What judgment mentioned here? Well, just as it was in the beginning of the judgment. Is it the judgment in October 22, 1844? That is Revelation 11:19. What is Revelation 11:19? Seventh trumpet. Does the seventh trumpet begins in 1844? Now let's go back to the vision of Sister White. Bible commentary, 4 BC 11:38. 4 BC 11:38. Chapter 6. So Isaiah chapter 6, then it says, Revelation 11 verse 19. Isaiah's experience represents last day church. Look at the quotation. Revelation 11 verse 19. Now, I will no longer elaborate this portion, just to read in 4 BC 11:39, saying, the vision given to Isaiah represents the condition of God's people in the last days. They are privileged to see by faith the work that is going forward in the heavenly sanctuary. And the quotation was Revelation 11 verse 19. Now that statement, if you will read the entire pages, that is provisionary time. Who are the church mentioned there? Let us read again 1 TG 27, page 8. 1 TG number 27, page 8. Since this message announces that the great and dreadful day of the Lord is at hand, that the judgment for the living is about to begin, and since Isaiah the prophet was given a vision of the Lord's moving into his temple for this judicial work, the prophet's experiences while he was yet in vision must therefore represent the experience of God's servants who are to announce the day of the Lord. His experience and commission must be our experience and commission. Who are they, the people mentioned here? The people who will announce the great and dreadful day of the Lord. To repeat again, in the General Conference Special, page 39, it says that the judgment of the dead do not even touch the subject of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So the only message that was entrusted by God to the Seventh-day Adventist Church is the judgment that pertains to the dead. And it does not even touch the subject of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Obviously, therefore, the church mentioned here cannot be the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It must be the last church in the New Testament succession, the 11th hour church. The church under the 7th step, in the 7th seal, and in the 7th trumpet. 1SR, page 127. The church on the 7th step, under the 7th seal, and in the 7th trumpet. So that must be the church under the 7th step, in the 7th seal, and in the 7th trumpet. Now, let's go back to track number 5, page 116 and 117. Consequently, the fulfillment of the prophetic statement, the temple of God was open in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, Revelation 11, verse 19, will just as it was in the beginning of the judgment. What judgment here? The beginning of the judgment of the living. What is the beginning of the judgment of the living? The sealing of the 144,000. Let's read to SR page 171. It says, the sealing of the 144,000 is at the closing of the judgment of the dead and at the beginning of the judgment of the living. What is the beginning of the judgment of the living? The sealing of the 144,000. Therefore, the statement in 4 BC 11:39, they are privileged to see by faith what is going on in the heavenly sanctuary, the most holy place. That pronoun they must be the 144,000. The 144,000 in Revelation 11 on verse 1, they are called the worshippers. According to track number 5, page 110, those who worship therein, being the living saints who are to be measured, they can only be the 144,000. Who are they, the worshippers? The 144,000. And what is the statement in 2SR 187 concerning the 144,000, which is the true worshippers? 2SR 187. The true worshippers in the earthly, who by faith look forward to the administration of the heavenly, were credited in the books of heaven as worthy of life eternal. Now let's go back to track number 5, pages 116 and 117. Let us read again the statement here, given by the voice of inspiration. Consequently, the fulfillment of the prophetic statement, the temple of God was open in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, Revelation 11:19, will, just as it was in the beginning of the judgment, be realized after the judgment is finished. And who are they that they will realize after the judgment is finished? It is even more pertaining to the wicked. They will acknowledge the message at the time when the sealing of the 144,000 is already finished. And then it says, that is after the close of provision, when the door of the temple is opened. You see, brothers and sisters, the illustration is that the 144,000 living saints, they have been given the privilege to see by faith what is going on in the heavenly sanctuary, even at the time when the door in the most holy place was still closed. And the only way that you could obtain such communication is through Jesus Christ. But the wicked as well, they will understand. But at the time when probation will close. And it says, I would like to continue reading. And after the judicial tribunal leaves the temple, one of the 4 beasts will give unto the 7 angels 7 golden vials full of the wrath of God. Now, this reading can be easily understood that the 7 angels with the 7 golden vials, they were not within the temple because they received the 7 golden vials, one of the 4 beasts. When? After the 4 beasts leaves the temple. Therefore, the 7 angels having the 7 golden vials, they were not within the temple. They were outside the temple. And they wait until the judicial tribunal leaves the temple. Until the judicial tribunal leaves the temple. And then one of the 4 beasts give to the 7 angels the 7 golden vials. Now let's go back to SR page 121. And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. First of all, even the verse itself can be easily understood that such event occurred before the woman had been judged. And then it says, the angel that was talking to John is one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials of the 7 last plagues. Then it says, see Revelation 15:7 and Revelation 16:1. It will be noticed that he had the vial of the plague ready, but it had not been poured out at the time he said to John, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore. Now, it cannot be in the days of John the Beloved. Because the description in the Bible, in Revelation 15:7, the 7 angels received the 7 vials, one of the 4 beasts, after they leave the temple. How could it be in 96 AD at the time when the 4 beasts did not yet enter to the temple? Because they entered to the temple in 1844, October 22, 1844. Therefore, we can easily understand that John mentioned here must be antitypical John. It must be pointing to the last prophet. That is very plain in this verse, as explained by the shepherd's rod. Is it Beti-Hotep? Now, if it is Beti-Hotep, then the 4 beasts leaves the temple in the days of Beti-Hotep. Because one of the 7 angels is talking to John. And at the time when that specific angel is talking to John, the 7 angels, had already the 7 vials. When did they receive the 7 vials? After the 4 beasts leaves the temple. And one of the 4 beasts give to them the 7 vials. Therefore, they could not have the 7 vials not until the 4 beasts leaves the temple. Therefore, it cannot be in the days of Beti-Hotep because the 4 beasts at that time did not leave the temple. And what is the message given by that angel? It says, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore. I would like to read first, I think 1 TG. So let's read the statement here. In 1 TG, number 21, page 20. 1 TG, number 21, page 20. After the earth is lightened, then it is that Babylon falls. Plainly then, Babylon has not actually fallen as yet. In fact, Babylon has not even come into existence yet. When thus this statement was written? Let's read. It was written 1946. So, the shepherd's rod is very plain. In 1946, Babylon has not even come into existence yet. What Babylon? The great whore, the mother of harlots, the woman in Revelation 17 and 18. So in the days of Beti-Hotep, that woman did not as yet in existence. Now let's go back to SR page 121. It says, it will be noticed that he had the vial of the plague ready, but it had not been poured out at the time he said to John, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore. This statement can be easily understood, brethren, that the John mentioned here cannot be ancient John. He is only the type, but it points out to God's prophet, God's servant, by which he received information. One of the 7 angels came to him, and at the time that he is talking to antitypical John, they already received the 7 vials, indicating that the 4 beasts leaves the temple. Now, let us continue reading. It says, to SR 121. By the information given, it is certain that the event predicted by the symbol, the woman sitting on the beast, is shortly before the plagues are poured out and in the time when the woman is to be judged. Is it the 7 last plagues which is literal? It cannot be. Because the 7 last plagues, which is literal, it will be poured out after the woman had been fallen. Meaning, the woman is no longer riding on the beast. And the 7 plagues, which is literal, it will be poured out after the woman is judged. Whereas, this occurrence is, it says, at the time when the woman rides the scarlet-colored beast, and in that time when the woman is to be judged. Therefore, these 7 plagues cannot be the literal. It must be the symbolical 7 last plagues. Remember, one of the message that B.T. Hotep says that he has no complete understanding, it is the 7 plagues. So I would like to read 3 Symbolic Code 8 to 10, page 9. 3 Symbolic Code 8 to 10, page 9. What are the 7 last plagues? Question number 179. Please explain what are the 7 last plagues. Answer. The nature of the 7 last plagues is not yet revealed. So very plain, right? The nature of the 7 last plagues is not yet revealed. The revelation is written in figurative speech, and therefore, the description of the plagues may be symbolical, as are the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets, etc. There are 7 plagues which is literal, but there are 7 plagues which is symbolical, according to this reading. And concerning the symbolical 7 plagues, it was not revealed by God to B.T. Hotep. The only thing that was given by God to B.T. Hotep is to inform the prophet that there is a symbolical 7 last plagues. Now, for example, here in 2SR 252, 2SR page 252, it says, the next number and event to deal with is the typical 40 days and 40 nights, while it reigned in comparison with the antitypical, the destruction of the wicked in the time of the plagues unto the second coming of Christ. The ruin of the wicked being worldwide, we must multiply the type with numbers signifying universal, so as to prove that the destruction include the 4 points of the compass. It has been previously proven that 10 is the only fitting number, therefore 40 times 10 equals 400. So, the literal 7 last plagues is literal 400 days, and that is universal. So what is the 7 plagues which is literal? Universal. What does it mean by universal? Universal cannot be construed complete. Because if you will say universal, it says here in 1SR 213, it says, had the number of horns been 7, it would have the biblical meaning all. But since the number 10 is used, all other are excluded. So universal, there must be places which is not included. All other are excluded. But the fact is that the literal 7 last plagues are universal. Now, how about this statement in the Great Controversy, 629? The Great Controversy, 629, it says, these plagues are not universal. Would you think Sister White and B.T. Hotep are contradicting against each other? No. They were inspired by the same spirit of inspiration. The plagues mentioned in the Great Controversy 629, which is not universal, is the 7 plagues which is symbolical. The 7 plagues which is symbolical, it will be poured out only to the symbolical earth, whereas the 7 plagues which is literal, it will be poured out on the literal earth. And why is it that the term used is universal? Because at the outpouring of the 7 plagues, which is literal, the symbolical earth will no longer be included. So it is not all. But the 7 plagues, which is symbolical, will be poured out in the symbolical earth. And unto whom such symbolical 7 plagues are directed? To all Sabbath keepers who abandon keeping the Sabbath. They observe Sunday because they were misled by the false prophet. When the false prophet let fire come down from heaven, millions upon millions of Sabbath keepers will abandon their position of being Sabbath keepers, and they will join to the rank of opposition. And that 7 plagues, which is symbolical, is more addressed to them who keep the Sabbath and have given it up. Now, I would like to read the Great Controversy, 608. The Great Controversy, 608. As the storm approaches, a large class who have professed faith in the third angel's message, but have not been sanctified through obedience to the truth, abandon their position and join the ranks of the opposition. By uniting with the world and partaking of its spirit, they have come to view matters in nearly the same light. And when the test is brought, what is that test? I will read to you. That is the time when the false prophet let fire come down from heaven. It says, and when the test is brought, they are prepared to choose the easy, popular side. Men of talent and pleasing address, who once rejoiced in the truth, employed their powers to deceive and mislead souls. They become the most bitter enemies of their former brethren. When Sabbath keepers are brought before the courts to answer for their faith, these apostates are the most efficient agents of Satan to misrepresent and accuse them, and by false reports and insinuations to stir up the rulers against them. The Great Controversy, page 608. Now, let me read to you in the writings of Alonzo Jones. Let's read. It says, the 13th verse, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire to come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. Is that fulfilled before the image of the beast is made? The congregation answered no. So, the false prophet will let fire come down from heaven after the image is fully made up. Then it says, we all know, who have read volume 4, that is one of the last things that is ever done before Satan comes himself personally. Remember when Satan will come, imitating the description in the Bible of the visible coming of Jesus Christ? Thousands upon thousands, it seems that they are resurrected. But we know that they are the fallen angels. And to those who are thinking that Bidihotep will be resurrected before the showdown, you will be misled, because the devil will imitate Bidihotep, will imitate Sister White. Yes, brothers and sisters, that is the time when Satan impersonate the coming of Jesus Christ. Now let me read to you here in the Great Controversy, 624. As the crowning act in the great drama of deception, Satan himself will personate Christ. The church has long professed to look to the Savior's advent as the consummation of her hopes. Now the great deceiver will make it appear that Christ has come. In different parts of the earth, Satan will manifest himself among men as a majestic being of dazzling brightness, resembling the description of the Son of God given by John in the Revelation. Revelation 1 verse 13 to 15. The glory that surrounds him is unsurpassed by anything that mortal eyes have yet beheld. The shout of triumph rings out upon the air. Christ has come! Christ has come! The people prostrate themselves in adoration before him, while he lifts up his hands and pronounces a blessing upon them, as Christ blessed his disciples when he was upon the earth. His voice is soft and subdued, yet full of melody. In gentle, compassionate tones, he presents some of the same gracious, heavenly truths which the Savior uttered. He heals the diseases of the people. And then, in his assumed character of Christ, he claimed to have changed the Sabbath to Sunday and commands all to hallow the day which he has blessed. He declares that those who persist in keeping holy the seventh day are blaspheming his name by refusing to listen to his angels sent to them with light and truth. This is the strong, almost overmastering delusions. You see, brothers and sisters, this is the crowning act in the great drama of deception. So, before the implementation of the Sunday law, brothers and sisters, the false prophet will let fire to come down from heaven first. Now, let us read again the statement here written by Alonzo Jones. It says, you who have read volume 4 know that, and you know who have not read it, just read it, and you will see that the making of the fire to come down from heaven is one of the last things that are done before Satan appears personally or after, but taking the most extreme view possible of it. It is among those things that are carried on when the very powers of the satanic agencies are exerted to their full extent to deceive, if possible, the very elect. This miracle is wrought to prove to the children of God that they are wrong in keeping the Sabbath. This miracle is wrought as a deciding test, and it will be one of the very last things before the decree goes forth to put people to death. You see, brothers and sisters? So that is the very last thing before the death decree will be implemented. The false prophet will let fire come down from heaven. When? After the image was made up. We read several times that the Bible is very plain. In Revelation 19 verse 20, and you can read the Bible. And if you are honest and sincere, I know it's easy to understand. It says here in Revelation 19 verse 20, it says, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them. You see, the false prophet deceived them. Who? he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast and them that worship his image. The Bible did not say that he let fire come down from heaven to deceive them in order for them to receive the mark of the beast and to worship his image. No, the Bible does not say that. Who are they, the people that will be deceived by the miracles of the false prophet? Those people who already worship the beast, who already received the mark of the beast and worship the image. Because that is what the Bible is saying. That had received, meaning before the false prophet let fire come down from heaven, these people already received the mark and already worship the image. How? In their foreheads, voluntarily. Because receiving the mark, worshiping the image, after the false prophet let fire come down from heaven, that is already by hands, meaning by force. There is already a death decree. And it is logical. If these people receive the mark, worship the image, voluntarily, by their foreheads, how much more they will receive the mark and they will worship the image more fully when it is already implemented by hands. But the bottom line of our study is that they received the mark, they worship the image before the false prophet let fire come down from heaven. And the people that deceived by the miracle performed by the false prophet are those people who already received the mark and worship the image. And who are they that refuses to bow down? Only the 144,000, because they have gotten the victory over the beast, gotten the victory over the image, gotten the victory over the mark, gotten the victory over the number of his name. They voluntarily refuse. Even before there was no yet death decree, they already refuse. They already avoid. Why? Because they understand. That is why the shepherd's rod says in track number 12, page 50, it says, let's read track number 12, page 50. Although our first question should be, what shall we do to avoid giving allegiance to the enemies of God, so as to be found worthy of a place in His kingdom when this evil time shall come? So brothers and sisters, that is the most important question. What shall we do to avoid giving allegiance to the enemies of God? Accept the present truth. Receive the present truth. Because all of them who do not fall in love with the present truth, deception is inevitable. 1 TG number 50, page 25. 1 TG number 50, page 25. It says, we see that if we do not fall in love with the truth, that is pointing to the present truth. We see that if we do not fall in love with the truth, deception is inevitable. No, none are deceived by coming in contact with error. For we are in contact with it anyway from the time we are born to the time we die. But everyone who does not love the truth is sure to be deceived, regardless what he may do to avoid it. Once you reject the present truth, you only place yourself subject to be misled. That is the statement given by the shepherd's rod. The people who place themselves subject to be misled, they are the people who reject the present truth. According to this reading, in 2SR 153, 2SR 153, it says, the wonderful miracles will be convincing, and the apparently genuine spirit of worship will bring deep conviction upon those who are subject to be misled. So the statement, subject to be misled, they place themselves to be misled by refusing to fall in love with the present truth. It is the present truth under the seventh seal. Brothers and sisters, they did not follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Meaning, they did not study the entire judicial proceedings in the plan of redemption. In the sanctuary construction and service is revealed the plan of salvation to SR 187. Now let us go back again to our reading. The symbolical 7 last plagues, it is addressed to all of them who keep the Sabbath and then abandon the Sabbath and then keep Sunday. And this will happen after the false prophet let fire come down from heaven. And this will happen after Satan impersonate Jesus Christ. Many of the people who are in their grave, the graves will be opened through the power of Satan, but it is not really resurrected, but the fallen angels will imitate. And of course, Satan is very wise. He will imitate those messenger or those people that have been acknowledged by different denominations as their messenger. Satan will imitate Sister White. If that statement in 2 Corinthians, I would like to read to you. 2 Corinthians chapter 11. It says, on verse 13, it says, "For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ." So in that resurrection, although it is not really resurrection, it is just imitation. One that had been mentioned here is the 12 apostles. The devil will imitate the 12 apostles. And then it says, no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. What the devil imitate? Jesus Christ. He imitate Jesus Christ. Therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness. So how could it be the fallen angels imitating us, the ministers of righteousness? Of course, they will imitate the image of those righteous messengers that had been sent by God. The 12 apostles, it will be imitated. Luther, Knox, Wesley, Campbell, Miller, White, B.T. Hotep, the devil will imitate. And according to, I think it is in the Great Controversy, that the tone of their voice, their face, is perfectly copied by the devil. And I do not know if I could find that statement. The familiar voice, I think that is the statement in the Great Controversy. Satan will imitate. I think it is under chapter 34, saying, "Can the dead speak to us?" 552. Thank you very much. So let us read. "He has power to bring before men the appearance of their departed friends. The counterfeit is perfect." So that is how the devil imitate those who are already dead. The familiar look, the words, the tone are reproduced with marvelous distinctness. You see, brothers and sisters, many are comforted with the assurance that their loved ones are enjoying the bliss of heaven, and without suspicion of danger, they give ear to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. So in reality, 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1 and verse 2 is even pointing to that event. When there are many souls that it seems they were resurrected, but it was cloned. It was perfectly cloned by the angels. And 100% the devil will not waste his time to resurrect or to imitate those people by which they have no honor and dignity as far as the gospel is thus concerned. No. But it must be those people that regarded as the spiritual guide. To the Davidian, when the devil will imitate B.T. Hotep will be resurrected, but not really resurrected, but imitated by the devil. Sister White, and all others that they considered as the spiritual benefactor. So, we need to study closely, brothers and sisters, because those events will no longer be far distant. Because the statement, it is the devil who will heal the disease of the people, not knowing that he is also the one who give the disease of the people. And we are living in this period of time. Very rampant, the one that we call COVID-19. Well, there might be possibility that COVID-19 is man-made. But of course, that man-made is backed up by the devil. They did not even suspect that their man-made disease is even more powerful than they had made. Because according to the vision of Sister White on the Great Controversy, it says here, 589, I would like to read the statement. "He imparts to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. Destruction will be upon both man and beast." That is the reality this year, 2019, 2020. Not only man, but as well as beast. It says, brothers and sisters, destruction will be upon both man and beast. But he will also be the one to heal those diseases when Satan will appear, according to the Great Controversy 624. But he will declare, "I have changed the Sabbath to Sunday." And those who are continuing observing Sabbath according to the vision of Mr. White, the devil will say that they had been cursed. And it is a blasphemy. Because the devil will declare that Saturday is the rest day in the Old Testament, but Sunday is the rest day in the New Testament. I have changed the Sabbath to Sunday. Yes, the rest day in the Old Testament is Saturday. That is the seventh day. That is the Sabbath. But in the New Testament, the rest day is Sunday. That would be the declaration of the devil, the declaration of Satan, which only giving more strength and confirmation to those people who are teaching Sunday. But after such declaration, the wrath of God will be poured out without mixture into the cup of His indignation. And first talking about the 7 last plagues, which are symbolical. The symbolical 7 last plagues. So, we will continue this subject on our next episode, brethren, and hoping that you will abide listening and viewing this program, because soon, very soon, all the prophecies that we are studying, it will be fulfilled in quick succession, and the final movements will be rapid ones. And this prophecy will begin its fulfillment in this year, the year 2021. Before the year 2021 will be finished, there is something great change that will happen. And we need to prepare for that event, my dear brothers and sisters, while provisionary time still lingers. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.